It was never a phase, Mom.
Yes, it was.
Right?
Hey, welcome to a Geekish podcast. I'm Beto, and that's Derek over there. And last week, we had a little bit of an inspirational podcast. We talked about Stephen Spahn. We talked with Stephen Spahn. This week, I feel like it's going to be a slightly different kind of inspirational podcast because we are going to talk about music, a very specific time frame of music. Both of us came from the radio days. And music is a big part of everything that goes on in here for me. I'm pretty sure you're the same way. Mm-hmm. And you actually threw this question out on Facebook last week, proclaiming that the early 2000s was the best time for music ever for you.
Yeah, I was going to say, here's the thing, is being radio guys, being music, I mean, we love music as it is. Music has always been part of our life, right? I grew up listening to old country with my dad and then classic rock with my mom. It depends who I was with in the car or, depending if my dad decided to let my mom have control of the radio because she hated country. But so I grew up with a very eclectic, that 50s bop and rock and then, the country from the 60s and, so I have a very eclectic music taste. And you and I both talked about how messed up our musical libraries are.
So I just want to pause that real quick there because I really want to psychoanalyze how Merle Haggard and Chuck Berry led you to emo.
Well, I don't know. Because I listened to that and then, Boston was one of the huge ones that, when I was a kid. And then back in the day when it was KS 104,
the cash cow.
Yeah, the hip hop back in the day. For some reason, I was all about that. And I'm just this nerdy, skinny white kid with glasses who has asthma. And I'm just like, yeah, I got 5 on it, doing all that type of jazz. And then somehow I got into rock. And I don't know if it was The Offspring or Nirvana. I don't know what it was. But, I mean, Nirvana was my first CD. We've talked about that before. I'm a huge Offspring fan. So 90s punk, rock, grunge, that holds a special part to me. When I put on the Bush CD, what is it, 16 Stone? Oh, That's my jam, dude. Just breathe in, breathe out, that whole thing. And then I kept following the music. And I still love music today. But my wife and I were jamming just, early 2000s to mid 2000s punk hits and emo hits and, just jamming out and remembering some of the stuff. And I was like, you know what? I have a feeling, because I still listen to this today. I still have it on my iPod. It's still in heavy rotation, all that type of music. I'm like, not to be that, my music was better than your music to the kids, but I feel like that genre, that decade from 2000, maybe even some in the 99 to 2010, pop punk, alt rock was just... It was on another level.
It had its own heyday, and I will agree with you most of those points. I don't want to go out there and say it was the best time music because I think we specifically talk about 2000 to 2006 is the main focus what we're shooting on here.
Yeah, there was some times in 2007 and 8. For me. I'll just throw in 2010 in there, but I know where you're coming from. Because I don't want to say it's the best music ever, but I just feel like for that particular genre, that was the prime. Yes, there's great punk in the 90s and there's great punk in the 80s, but I think that emo, that screamo, all of it from 2000 to 2010, it just kind of evolved and just became perfection. You had New Found Glory, you had Fall Out Boy, you had Panic at the Disco, you had Blink-182 right in their prime. I mean, yeah, Enema of the State came out in
98, 99, something like that.
Yeah, 98 or 99. But, Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, and then you had the spinoff with Boxcar Racer and then Plus 44. They're all trying their own things. Boxcar Racer, the, emo Tom DeLonge with his hair in the rain, and then you had Simple Plan making you feel like I'm just a kid, just anthems, man.
I think one of the most impressive parts of this time of music and these different genres of music, a lot of these ones you're bringing up weren't necessarily chart toppers, number one hit makers, everything like that. This kind of movement was this style of music created its I won't say created, but had a big influence on its own subculture that today has kind of erupted into, I would go on a limb and say a lot of those bands that were big in the early 2000s are probably more successful now than they were back at the time.
Could be. Well, I mean, so what? You got Eve 6 tearing up Twitter, becoming relevant with just off the cuff, one shots and everything like that, making fun of other bands and everything like that. Trapped, they kind of went weird nowadays. So I won't get into that. You can Google that for yourself. Get into what they've been doing. But yeah, I mean, Fall Out Boy still found a success. They found their niche. Panic at the Disco. They switched band members. That whole thing. They're good now, but I don't think Panic at the Disco is as good as they were when they first started out.
It's tough to be continually groundbreaking.
Right. I mean, but they're also catering to a different audience as well. But they still kind of cater to the people who were just like all about them. And you're 100% right. They probably are more successful now because we can go back, we can just jam out, we can stream them, we can download them. I mean, I don't know, man. Like Finch, I'm just like, yeah, AFI, yeah. And so, Matt Cutshall.
Matt Cutshall, okay.
He's a Instagram, YouTube dude, and he's been doing the Emo's Not Dead. So, he's been kind of bringing some of those songs back up. He's done collaborations with Yellow Card recently, Dashboard Confessional, Hawthorne Heights. So he's bringing in a resurgence to that as well, because a lot of people follow him, and they're just like, yeah. So if you have a chance, those are some funny videos to go with. But
and those are the heydays. I mean, the early 2000s. That was right after I was out of high school. I went through college those years. Worked at the college radio station. Worked at the alternative radio station here in town, and that was like, I don't know about you, but for that decade, I was also going to concerts probably 4 to 5 times a month or more. Like whether it was a local show, whether it was something down in Denver, or it was a big festival, like going to concerts were part of life. Not like a special occasion here and there. It was just like, what show are we seeing this weekend? What band are we seeing tonight? And that's what we did.
Well, especially when right when I started with the station, they flipped from alternative to, hot AC or whatever you want to call it. And I was just like, no, I wanted to play, the Yellow Card and everything like that. But we still had the advantage of being able to go to a lot of concerts, and it was awesome. And I know when you worked the morning show, when I worked the morning show, we still made that sacrifice to go to shows, even though it sucked the next day.
Mm-hmm.
But
like, I'm at a show till midnight. I got to be at work at 4 a.m. It's what Red Bull's for.
Yeah, I got to drive an hour and a half back.
All right, I got some trivia for you for early 2000s. We'll go through year by year. Year 2000, Creed, Metallica, AC/DC, Three Doors Down, Red Hot Chili Peppers all had #1 rock songs that year. Which one had the most?
Creed, right?
No. Three Doors Down. 21 weeks at #1 with Loser.
Oh, yeah, dude.
2000,
that was a jam.
Yeah. 2001 had Godsmack, Aerosmith, Aaron Lewis, Tantric, Three Doors Down, Stained, Nickelback, and Creed. The biggest one was 2001.
Nickelback was the biggest one, right?
Second. Stained spent 20 weeks at #1 with It's Been a While. And then Aaron Lewis and Fred Durst were 2 weeks with Outside. Then Nickelback was 13 weeks with How You Remind Me.
Dude, oh my God, concerts were so good back then because you had the Family Values tour too. So that's why you had Korn, Limp Bizkit, Stain doing the collaboration with. Well,
that was summer here. You had Family Values tour. You had Ozfest. You had Warp Tour. Yep. Okay, 2002, start getting a few more bands. Puddle of Mud, Nickelback, Godsmack, Chad Kroeger, Chili Peppers, System of a Down, Nickelback, Nirvana, Three Doors Down for 2002.
I'm going to say Chad Kroeger because that was a Spider-Man soundtrack, right?
Yeah, that was only 2 weeks. Biggest ones again, Three Doors Down with When I'm Gone and Puddle of Mud with Blurry.
Oh yeah, Puddle of Mud, dude. That's a band that kind of. He got arrested at DIA. Did you know that?
Yeah, he was a crazy guy. 2003, I think this is the year that modern rock started taking over. Godsmack, Linkin Park, Audio Slave, Chevelle, Trapped, Stained, Perfect Circle, Puddle of Mud.
Oh, I mean, there's so many one. I mean, Linkin Park was they turned the music world upside down with their, metal rap metal, and then Limp Bizkit was like, we've been doing that. But
see, that goes right where I'm saying. Linkin Park, only 1 week at number 1 with Somewhere I Belong. Audio Slave and Stained, 12 and 14 weeks.
What song for Audio Slave?
That was Like a Stone.
Yeah, that explains that. That's a great song.
Now we're moving to 2004. You got Linkin Park, Nickelback, Jet, Velvet Revolver, 3 Days Grace, and Chevelle.
Do you want to be my girl? God, man. See, this is just...
But you know what's funny?
Granted,
that song never even made it to number 1.
Well, I know. I'm just saying that I forgot about that song. Because, we played that on this station for a little bit.
A little bit? We played it 57 times a week.
A little bit.
For that year, Nickelback Figured You Out at 13 weeks, and Velvet Revolver Fall to Pieces at 11. 2005... Green Day, Audio Slave, Mudvayne, Seether, Foo Fighters, Stained, Nickelback, and Shinedown.
It's 2005 when Green Day did American Idiot. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say Green Day then.
You got that one down. Boulevard of Broken Dreams, 14
Yep.
weeks. Shinedown, Save Me at 12. And then 2006, our final year for our little talk here. Nickelback, Godsmack, Chili Peppers, 3 Days Grace, Stone Sour, Disturbed, and Tool.
Ooh. I want to say 3 Days Grace, but I know it's not.
I'm going to give it to you because it is. 3 Days Grace, 13 weeks for Pain, and 7 weeks for Animal I Become.
Pain! Oh, God. See, and that album, all these albums you're saying, except for, Puddle of Mud I wasn't a big fan of. And it was like, Velvet Revolver, Nickelback.
There was like 2 songs Velvet Revolver had that were fun. But not near worth the hype of the Scott Weiland's in a new band.
Nickelback, I was part of the Nickelback train in the beginning. I did have them, but I think when Photograph came out, that just killed it for me. Like, there's other good songs on that album, but I was just like,
It's interesting because we started the discussion with the emo stuff and the emo and punk rock things. The AFIs, the Alkaline Trios, all these things going in there. Again, the not quite as successful ones, the ones that I liked that much more. But you're looking at the music industry, and these were the modern rock charts we just went through. You notice that modern rock family tree didn't get very big. There was the same bands over and over and over again, and I think that's kind of what helped these other bands flourish, because in the mainstream selection of music, it was just, here's the same bands over and over and over and over again, so they offered something different.
It's the same bands too that all have a similar sound. Jet was a little bit different, and you saw how well that worked for them. And then you had Franz Ferdinand. They tried to do that, and that didn't work for them. And then Muse came in and did something different, and all these bands kind of, the ones that we were talking about with the core ones, they kind of sounded the same. Linkin Park, by far, was the most unique one, and then same with 3 Days Grace, because he had that voice that just kind of set them apart a little bit. But Nickelback, Puddle of Mud, and all those, they kind of share
you definitely tell the musical formula, because even those ones you mentioned, their earlier successful songs still sound very much like Muse. The first couple Muse songs sounds just like regular modern rock, and then Muse started taking off a different direction. The first 3 Days Grace album was a very insert whatever band you want here sound, and then they started taking their own thing and going off with it. So they had to stick to that formula to get in the door, and then they tried to let their creative juices flow, whereas Panic at the Discos, they went, here's what we got.
Dude, that first album. So I know I think we've talked about our best concerts, like Panic at the Disco. I saw them at the Fillmore, and it was their first tour, and it was, I want to say like July, or it was hot. It was extremely hot, and we're all crammed in there. And they come out on stage, man, and they're doing, like the fun Vegas routines, and they got performers up there while they're singing. I was like, yeah. And that album, for some reason, like, I will still, that album is like 33 minutes long or whatever. I'll still sing it from front to back, just nonstop, and then won't have a voice afterwards. But
that was a solid album. I remember when Lying is the Most Fun a Girl Can Have Without Taking Her Clothes Off came. That was about the time when I was waking up to go to work, and the only time a day when MTV would actually show music videos, they had their morning show, they'd show some, but it was like the same 6 videos they showed over and over again. Right. So I'm pretty sure I got to see the video for that one and Daniel Powter's Bad Day like 3 times a week for a month, getting up to go to school.
God, dude. What was the other video? Not VH1. There was another one that was like on cable that had Fresh Crops and everything like that. Because like,
that one.
Oh God, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus on there, 12 Stones. Oh man, Trapped was on there. It's just one of those. You just go back and you listen to them, and you're like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So here's a list from Punky.com, an Australian website, of some emo songs that are going to take you back. My Chemical Romance, I'm Not Okay, I Promise. Mm-hmm. It's become an anthem for a generation somehow. This Ain't a Scene, It's an Arms Race from Fall Out Boy.
Yep.
Far from their first hit, but probably one of their most commercially successful ones.
Grand Theft Auto's still one of my favorite songs by them, though, from their first album. Or not their first album, but you know what I mean.
30 Seconds to Mars, The Kill. Mm-hmm. AFI, Miss Murder.
See, I like that song, but there's other better AFI songs.
There are, and I really like AFI. I was actually the world fell in love with AFI for that album, and I was kind of disappointed because I grew up with AFI being this East Bay hardcore punk band with suspenders and flat tops, and when this came out, I was like, what happened? They all went to art school. Dude, and it was still really good, but it was really tough to adjust.
What is that? That's December Underground that's on. That album was pretty solid, and I'm with you because what was it? Sing the Sorrow was the album before that one. Uh-huh. And I absolutely love that one. So when December Underground came out, I was like, okay, it's a little bit different. I'm loving it. And then all of a sudden, like you said, they just blew up. Everyone's like, have you heard of this band AFI? I'm like, yeah. They're like, do you know what it stands for? I'm like, yeah, a fire inside. They're like, well, how'd you know that? I'm like, because they've been around for a while, guys.
Let's see, Face Down from Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. Mm-hmm. One of the few one-hit wonders that song's really good.
That album was pretty good. I remember, God, see, this is another thing.
They were super nice dudes too. Got to interview them at Warped Tour when they came through with that.
Well, the thing with that too is, you look back at, I think another reason why some of these bands like Red Jumpsuit Apparatus and all these kind of game thing is what was popular in the mid 2000s right there. Mm-hmm. MySpace was a huge place for music. I remember finding so much music on there and just being like, yes.
Yeah, the claim to fame was Colby Calais got big because of MySpace, but there were so many other way better bands that got discovered because of MySpace.
Not saying that Colby Calais is not great because we met her and she's super nice as well, but
yeah, I'm not dissing her, but as far as that was the magazine and tabloid things. Oh, MySpace made this super pop star big. Well, she got signed to a major label. That's why she got big.
Yeah.
Taking Back Sunday, make damn sure. Which Taking Back Sunday is one of those bands, they kind of started getting big, and I was upset because their last album, the one with Great Romance of the 20th Century and Your Soul Last Summer, was one of those albums I listened to nonstop, and it never got any commercial love.
Well, I think what helped them was, the whole thing between Taking Back Sunday and Brand New. Because you listen to Brand New's first album, it's like this, poppy little punk thing, and then you listen to the one that has Deja Entendu on it and everything like that, and you're just like, what's going on? And if you read what's going on between those two bands with the one dude cheating on, taking that guy's girlfriend or whatever, fiance or whatever it was, and then they do those diss albums towards each other, you're like, okay, that makes good music.
Emotions, emo, you know how it goes. Used, I Caught Fire.
God.
See, Used was decent. I liked a couple Used songs, but I feel like they were a little overrated. I think their ties with
My Chemical.
what's his name, dating Kelly Osbourne, got him a lot more fame than the music necessarily deserved. But
well, I think that also, again, they were friends with My Chemical Romance, and then when Gerard started getting sober, and Bert was like, dude, heroin. It's like, all right, now, guys.
Simple Plan, Welcome to My Life. Another one. That's a good song, but their previous album, I feel, was way better.
They're Canadian, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, we got some good music out of Canada.
And I guess this is from an Australian set, so maybe it's a little bit different. Paramore and Misery Business.
God, Paramore.
Hawthorne Heights, Ohio's for Lovers. Evanescence, Bring Me to Life. Senses Fail, Calling All Cars.
Oh my God, that's such a good song.
Story of the Year.
Yep.
What else I got in here? Good Charlotte, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
Jimmy Eat World, The Middle.
Just take some time.
That album from Jimmy Eat World is
it's so good.
on my list of one of the best albums of all time, I think.
Recording.
Yellow Card, Ocean Avenue, Blink-182, I Miss You, Linkin Park and Numb, All American Rejects, Dirty Little Secret.
Well, and the thing too, it's really good. And the thing too is you look back at the movies too with American Pie, Van Wilder. There was another one like the Not Another Teen movie. They all had those songs on there, right? Mm-hmm. You're just like, yes, because I mean, Sugar Cult was heavily on that Van Wilder soundtrack.
Oh, Sugar Cult.
Yeah. See. It's just, I don't know. Like, again, I love music now. I love music from the 70s, the 60s, the 80s, but just that mid-2000s is like, it's not a phase.
One of the bands that I think was huge at that time for me, Zebrahead. Loved Zebrahead.
I had one of their albums.
I'll go through some of my other lists on here. We already talked about Yellow Card. Weezer put out the Green Album at that time, which was a pretty solid album.
I wasn't a Weezer fan back then. Like, they had some good stuff to me, but it just didn't appeal to me. You know, I liked the Sweater Song, the generic ones that were on the radio, but
had the Vandals, the punk band, Trust Company.
Oh God, Trust Company was so good.
See, I loved a couple Trust Company songs, but I got really bored by their entire albums. But a couple of the songs were like, ugh.
Dude, you know what album was like? It spoke to me, and I still will jam it. Is Finch, What It Is to Burn? That whole album is just fantastic. The one afterwards, but
yeah, that album is great. So you had 3 Days Grace. We talked about them. We had Tegan and Sarah's So Jealous album came out.
Yep.
That was a very solid album.
Lost Prophets were huge, but then I stopped listening to them after the lead singer got arrested for some very gross stuff, and he's in jail. So I don't know.
I hate that because they had a couple songs that were just like the drums were so good.
I know, dude. That first album, The Last Train Home. Oh, it's such a good album, but I can't.
And we talked about Take 'Em Out Sunday, System of a Down. I mean, they had Toxicity, Steal This Album, Mesmerize all come out between 2001 and 2005. Sum 41 had 4 albums come out. The Strokes had a couple albums come out. I'm just looking through my list of playlists here. That's Simple Plan, Seether, Scissor Sisters.
What about Avril Lavigne? I'm surprised she's not. Like, she started a whole like punk girl movement, kind of.
She kind of did. Honestly, that was one of the ones that I saw the power of a hit song. I was working at the college radio station here in Fort Collins, doing my overnight shift play and stuff, and her first song, Complicated, came out. And this was before it blew up and got actually big. And on a college radio station, every time I played that song, I got 5 or 6 different phone calls asking who it was or what that song was or who sang that song. Like, it was a couple times a day people calling our songs that, but every time that song played, the phones just started lighting up, and then a month later, like, oh, it's a #1 hit across the country. Cool, look at that. Was
Complicated first or Skater Boy?
Complicated. Skater Boy was the trash second single off that album.
I would say Skater Boy might be bigger than Complicated, but...
Well, bigger, yeah, but it's a fun song, but let's be honest, that is one of the worst songs written in history. It's energetic, it's catchy, it's fun, but... yeah.
He's just a boy. I'm just a girl.
Yeah. Let's see, Rob Zombie had some stuff. The Riddlin' Kids, Hurry Up and Wait came out. Oh
my God, I love that album.
I apparently went to college with one of their brothers. Oh. Real Big Fish had a couple albums. Chili Peppers, Rancid, Ramones. Postal Service, Plain White Tees.
All right, Postal Service and Death Cab for Cutie, granted, same dude, but to me, they're interchangeable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's sad. And that's kind of like the thing too with like Plus 44 and the new Blink without Tom. To me,
yeah,
it kind of sounds the same. But Postal Service did have some great hits, but to me, it's just Death Cab for Cutie.
Yeah.
Like
it's
Alpha.
just, yeah.
Or
Their
Death
next
Cab for
album.
Cutie and Beta. So
Papa Roach, POD, OPM, OK Go, Offspring, Newfound Glory, The Muse, Music and Muse, two different ones.
Dude, okay, so Music, and I'm surprised you haven't said this band yet, Incubus, a huge one from that time. Music opened up for Incubus at Budweiser Event Center. I went to that show by myself, and I was like sick because the ticket was given to me because she couldn't go because like her grandfather had died. So she's like, "Here, can you go?" I was like, "Sure, I could go," but then I ended up being sick that day. I was like, "All right, I don't want this ticket to go to waste." So I went to the show, hated it, hated every minute of it. I despised that venue because it was at the Budweiser Event Center. I was sick. Everybody was a huge Incubus fan. I liked them okay, and I was just like stuffed in a sardine, and I was like, "Guys, I'm not feeling well. I'm going home." I came, I saw it, I'm out.
Yeah, I never jumped on the Incubus bandwagon. I do like some of their stuff, and they've got some good songs. I just never like got the feels from much of it and was a huge Incubus fan. But almost everybody I knew seemed to think that Incubus was like the second coming of.
Well, I would
music.
say like "Make Yourself" is a pretty solid album, but to me after that it's like, I don't know. What we also got Hoobastank, Anne Boleyn. And I posted this question on
Mest
Instagram.
and Goldfinger.
Dude, Mest was so good. Less Than Jake.
The Fray broke out in 2005. Flybanger, Flyleaf. Flipside, Finger 11 came off the world right then. Eve 6, Fallout Boy, Dropkick Murphys had another couple albums. The Distillers, Dashboard Confessional, like the grandpappies of emo. The Darkness, Collective Soul had more albums. Coheed and Cambria had a couple albums. It was a good time for music. Bowling for Soup, Bloodhound Gang, Blink 182, Better Than Ezra, Ben Lee, Bad Religion albums, Avril Lavigne, Authority Zero, Audioslave, Adam and His Package, The Aquabats, Andrew WK, Alistair, Alkaline Trio. It's
I mean, it could go on. And the one thing that I posted on Twitter is like a lot of these bands are still doing stuff nowadays, kind of dabbling. The dude from Alkaline Trio is actually with Blink 182 now, which is just
Matt Skiba's with Blink 182 now?
I think so.
Man.
It's weird to me. But what happened to Hoobastank? They had 2 solid albums and then they like disappeared.
I don't know. They were like all the talk for a while.
Yeah. And we were jamming some Hoobastank last night and I was like, what happened to these guys? Because like, Dashboard Confessional is still kind of doing stuff. Like I said, Trapped is still out there talking, and I can follow most of what's going on. Like Yellow Card kind of broke up so they could work on family, something corporate. Andrew McMahon did his own thing, so they could all focus on family, And Amber Lynn kind of is getting back together. Red jumpsuit apparatus, that stuff. But I'm like, what happened to Hoobastank?
Well, apparently,
where'd they go?
They went on tour in 2018 as a 15th anniversary of The Reason.
What?
And according to Wikipedia, that was the last thing they really did. But they had their 6th studio album that they recorded in 2016. And then they went on a reunion tour, and that was all that's listed on there. So if you know anything about what else happened to Hoobastank, you get on that Wikipedia page and get that updated.
Matt Skiba is part of Blink 182 now. I had to make sure and double check my facts on that before I sound like an idiot. So they did an album in 2016?
Apparently, at least they recorded one. I don't know if it ever got released, but...
Huh.
And some of those bands, like, I have to hand it, because I think back to a lot of classic rock bands, too. There's a lot of classic rock bands that, big in the 70s and early 80s that are still going on tour today.
Foreigner.
But some of them are still going on tour playing, like, no-name clubs, trying to put out new music and try and break into the music scene.
Yeah.
And I just feel bad for some of them because it's really tough to do, especially when you got that well-known name. And there's other ones that, you know what? I've played this song 376 times a year for the last 20 years, but I'm going to play it again for you right now because you all are going to love it. And they just kind of own up to the fact that, like, I think when some of those musicians get so high and mighty on their own
Dave
art
Matthews.
that they don't, yeah, Madonna even. Madonna's gone on record saying she absolutely is embarrassed of the music she put out in the 80s.
That's what made her, though. That's what pisses me off.
Yeah,
I
got to see her in concert. Was it 5-6 years ago, something like that?
Yeah.
And she had her new album, and she had, I was outside with the people coming on stage, and everybody's there dressed up in all their 80s Madonna garb there to see her. She played a new album, and she played one song where she mashed up like 5 or 6 80s hits, like did the chorus or a couple lines into one song, and that was the only mention she did of anything recorded prior to like 2010. And you could just feel everyone there was like, I don't want to see your new stuff.
Well, and that's the thing, too, is because Dave Matthews, like, refuses to play Crash, right? Crash Enemy?
Probably.
And I know there's some other bands out there that are just like, yeah, we're not playing that song anymore. And I understand it from their aspect, but at the same time, I'm like, your fans want to hear it. Yes, they can sit there and press repeat on that album, but you are, like, they're the reason you're famous is because of that song.
The one caveat, I will give it to Bare Naked Ladies. Because they won't play If I Had $1 Million because they broke up. Bare Naked Ladies is still together, but why can't I think of his name now? The one that went up a solo career.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. Anyway, but they full up say people request it, and he on stage gives like me and the other guy wrote that song as a duet to sing together, and the band broke apart. So we made an agreement, and we're not going to play that song because it was written as a duet for us. So we're not going to try and ruin the memory of it. Which, if you're going to own up for one song like that, I can kind of buy into it. If you helped write it with somebody else, and then you guys are not together for various reasons, having the grown-upness to be like, you know what? Instead of fighting over this, let's just say no. Because you'll get the opposite what happened with the band Styx, big 70s, 80s rock band. They broke up. The lead singer went off and formed his old band, and the original Styx got a new singer, went on tour. And I kid you not, in the early 2000s, those bands came through Colorado on tour less than 2 weeks apart. And both of them were playing mostly Styx songs. So and you could just tell that they were both just fighting over who had rights to what or who was allowed to sing what. It was ugly and depressing and sad.
Well, and that's the thing too, is there's a lot of the mid 2000s bands that aren't together anymore because they did the whole like early 20s, late 20s, we're punk rockers, everything like that, and then they got a family. Mm-hmm. They're like, all right, we're selling it. And that's one thing that I'm sad is like I never got to see something corporate. I've seen Jack's Mannequin, a couple times, which is great, but it's just those something corporate songs, leaving through the window. I just wanted to like scream that. And I asked Andrew McMahon, I was like, is you guys ever going to get back together? He's like, probably not, because they all have their own families and everything like that. I was like, oh.
I got to see something corporate one time, and I feel super lucky that I was able to. Back when he had his big, super, like, curly afro, standing on his piano, jumping around. Beth was actually at that concert with me, too, my wife, and she couldn't see it because we were at the Fillmore, and she's not real tall.
Yeah.
But, that was a good concert.
Rub it in.
Yep.
Anyway.
Well, we should probably wrap this up because we've been talking way longer about music, but hopefully this has maybe inspired you. We're going to put together a playlist of some of our best music from this genre. We're going to put it on the website at getgeekish.com. I'd love to hear what you'd like to add to that list and talk about what we refer to as the golden age of this type of music here. Early 2000s rock, in quotes. What do you got? Let us know at Get Geekish. And I am going to go play on my playlists right now because I feel nostalgic.
Jam it out. Just scream your heart out. Yeah!
Was that Get Geekish? And we will talk at you next week.